So when Rahu is in the 5th house and Ketu is in the 12th house, you'll often see that, for instance, when they were younger, maybe they came from a large family and their individual identity, their individual creative identity was not honored so much. There was a lot of brothers and sisters, maybe they were a middle child, or maybe something where they felt overlooked. They didn't feel that they were personally appreciated for their own creativity and their own unique contribution. So Ketu in the 11th house, they'll often turn away from being part of a large group and from having ambitions, because they're going to focus more on what pleases them and what makes them happy creatively. The 5th house is really the house of our sort of heart's desire and what we enjoy creating. Now, it's often codified to be the house of children. Children are an expression of that. They're like the culmination of that. You always want to understand this when you look at these symbols. The 5th house is like the culmination of our creative joy. Once someone has a child, they're going to pour their heart's desire and their creative joy into that child. But many people don't want a child because they have a naturally strong creative drive. And that's the desire to express ourselves as an individual, to express ourselves as a unique creative being. And that's what the 5th house is, and the joy that comes from that. So when Rahu is in the 5th, a person is obsessed with creating, but they have a kind of withdrawal from, let's say, sharing that or making sure that everybody likes it. As an example, let's say an artist. It's a very good example. There are often artists who rebel against being accepted. This is acceptance. This is like public acceptance would be the 11th house part of it. This is the creative process. Very much like a parent would like their child, 5th house, to be, famous and popular and have their child be a source of love and beauty for everyone. Nothing makes a parent happier than to see their child grow up and influence the world and influence culture, or even just have everybody that they know think the child is beautiful. That's a very 11th house thing as well. 11th house is our connection with groups, which either leads to a sort of ambition where we compete against them, or where we dissolve our own unique identity for the greater good of the culture and the society. So as I say, when someone has Ketu in the 11th, their family culture and society tended to dominate them. They come from a paradigm where their creative joy wasn't featured. Instead, the needs of the group, of the family or whatever, tended to squash their creative joy. So they rebel against that and say, I'm going to be relentlessly creative and everything is about me being creative. So again, when it's extreme, then it might even produce an artist who goes out of his way to make sure that their art is unaccepted. So as soon as they start to get public approval, they reject it and they do something else. Again, Rahu keeps rebelling against the Ketu until the person gets more mature around this split. And in that case, then the artist, rather than just childishly rebelling against praise or feeling like the only way that they're legit is to be this kind of suffering outcast, they learn to create art or to create beauty and create meaning in a way that is uplifting to others. And again, it always comes back to uniting ourselves with something that is higher than just our own unique ego. So this is why the 5th house is also related to teachers, and it's related to, like any kind of artistic pursuit. When we're younger, we might, let's say, be a songwriter. We might write songs about our own pain and all this kind of stuff. This is why you see a lot of artists that once they get accepted, they're miserable because they're, especially like in rock music or some kind of, secular art, the whole thing that drives them is to express this kind of outsider status. Then as soon as they become accepted, they've lost that whole drive. Sometimes it's they become very desperate. Once they get more mature, they can see how their creative joy, when it's aligned with a higher purpose, like let's say spiritual pursuit or teaching some higher form of art or wisdom, is actually only beneficial when it's important to others. So uniting this split between our personal creativity and uniting it with the culture is what you see with the Rahu in the 5th, Ketu in the 11th axis.